Just waiting for the connection to plug in, and it looks like we are live. Hey guys, welcome to the Startup Tank, the climate investor pitch show presented by us here at Forward VC in our Climate Techies community. If you haven't tuned in, we do this every 2 weeks. It's Shark Tank or Dragon's Den for climate companies. We bring on the world's top climate VCs alongside 4 to 6 top pre-seed to pre-series A climate companies. Try to get some deals done. If you want to find out more about us or have a chance to pitch in the future, thestartuptank.com. And all this is brought to you guys by Forward VC, the ultimate accelerator and climate tech ecosystem. If you want to join potentially our partner in Climate Accelerator, we bring 1 to 2 companies in a month and help them with growth, scaling, acquiring customers, partners, pilots, and ultimately fundraising, of course. And if you want to find out a bit more about us, our Climate Techies community of 3,000 plus founders, VCs, corporates, government agencies, etc., network, find potential partners, and do anything that you can to collaborate your gig in the climate space forward. Our resource hub is probably the best place to do that. Forward.vc/techies hub. There you can find our climate solutions database, our climate VC database, and pretty much any other database you could ever hope to find at forward.vc/techies hub. And so during the show, I've got joined by a couple of incredible investor panelists. I'm going to give them a chance to represent themselves and their fund in a second. And then the startups, they'll have 5 minutes to pitch to our panel of terrifying sharks who will then cut apart the pitches. We'll give a bit of feedback, a bit of Q&A. And at the end of the session, we'll pick our startup of the night. So first things first, Nadav, if you want to share a little bit more about Nomea and what you guys are doing, so that people know exactly what to expect?
Sure, I'm happy to. So thanks, Matt, for having me for the second time on the Startup Tank. And hi, everyone. I'm Nadav Steinmetz. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Nomea, which is an early-stage climate tech fund based in London, where we invest in early-stage businesses that have significant decarbonization potential across the climate tech space. We're based in London. We like quite a lot of deep tech and hardware, let's say, very different from the traditional VCs. And we focus on businesses that are scalable with attractive unit economics and business models. I'm also the managing partner of Climate First, which is the largest climate tech accelerator in Israel that supports early stage businesses on their mission to reduce emissions. So I'm very happy to be here.
And we're very happy to have you. And John, you have a little bit of transition, but you want to share your background? Oh, John, we can't hear you quite yet.
Is this better?
Much better.
Okay, perfect. And thanks, Matt, for having me. So for the last few years, I've been working as a senior investment manager at Aqua-Spark. We're a venture capital fund focusing exclusively on sustainable aquaculture, but across the whole value chain from feed to health to hardware, software, novel farm systems, around €500 million euro fund right now. And we invest from seed to Series B, basically. But actually from this week, I'm starting a new project and beginning to syndicate my own deals in the climate space more globally. So yeah, expanding my focus, basically.
Very, very exciting. And aquaculture might play very nicely into what AQUALITAS is doing. If you guys didn't hear, one of the graduates of our Partner in Climate program, AQUALITAS and Georgi, they're going to be talking about the future of aquaculture so we can save fish from dying. But Nick, you want to share more about Spin Ventures so people have some context?
Hi, Matt. Thank you for having us. And hi, everyone. It's great to be here. It's my first time, so I am very excited. So I'm the founder and managing partner at Spin Ventures. Spin Venture is an ecosystem on a mission to accelerate transition to circularity. So we have an accelerator, we have what we call the corporate engagement unit, and then we have the investment units now turning into a VC fund. It's an ecosystem model, so we grow companies, invest in them, and then forge strategic partnership with large group in order to drive scale. We sharply focus on circularity in the consumer and retail space. So we're looking at seed, pre-Series A, Series A, innovators in bioregenerative materials, decarbonized supply chain, new marketplaces, new business models that apply to the consumer and retail industry, all the re-commerce, all the reverse vending, reverse logistic, and we've sort of been working on the sector for a few years. We have 8 ventures on board, and very, very exciting to be here with you guys. So looking forward to hearing the pitch and doing more of this. Thank you, Matt, and thank you, everyone.
And we're super excited. And we are super excited to have you on board. And anyone who's disappointed that Fractalytics isn't here, that is my fault. That has nothing to do with the company. I forgot we changed the date because they were getting so much traction on the pilots and what they were setting up with their new beta program, basically helping companies to right size the heat pump. Because it turns out when you're installing a heat pump, you don't exactly know how much heating you need, and everything is being over installed because let's over insure things, which means that it's incredibly expensive even when it shouldn't be to make the clean energy transition. So they'll actually be pitching next month for the misfire on the email side. I apologize. As you can see, I am only human and only have a halfway decent sense of humor. Anyways, you guys didn't come here for shitty jokes. You guys came here for awesome companies and great feedback. So let's kick things off and get right into it. I want to say Nick was asking if he could potentially go first, right? Leafr, Upwork for climate companies. You want to take things away and share what you're doing. You'll have 5 minutes on the clock, and then the terrible bell of stopping will go off, and it is time for the questions. 10 minutes or so of Q&A. You ready to jump in?
Yeah, I can kick off. So let me just share my screen.
Awesome. And I will try to give you a 1-minute warning so you know to speed things up if you're a little behind.
Okay. Just bear with me. Okay, let me know when you guys can see this.
Looking good. Take it away. Climate freelancing.
Okay, awesome. So hi, everyone. Thank you for the time. Thanks, Matt. So I'm Nick Valencia. I'm the founder of Leafr. I guess just start by saying, so I'm up here with a few other really awesome startups, and it's an exciting time. And we were talking before the call about wildfires. And I think the summer has been really one for extreme heat, extreme weather events. And I think there's a general sense that people have woken up in the space to what needs to happen. And there's a huge amount of funding coming into the climate space. So trillions of funding from the IRA in the States, and then in the EU as well, favorable policy, regulation, and more companies are now committing to net zero. And so things seem like they're kicking into gear. And in fact, the IPCC has said that we have the technology and the innovation to actually deliver on net zero. But this isn't what's currently happening. And I think there's a bit of an elephant in the room when it comes to climate change. And that elephant is this, that if you're a company trying to decarbonize, if you're a head of sustainability or a head of procurement, you cannot find the skill sets that you need to deliver on net zero. And this is a major issue, and it is what is holding back a lot of companies' climate projects. And the implication here is, so these figures are from the UK. You can see that a vast majority of companies' climate goals are being hampered by this inability to find skilled talent. And in the UK, we have regulations such as CSRD coming out, which is going to affect British businesses, but just 40% of them are going to be ready. And what that means is fines, and what that means is projects that are not done at the speed and scale that they need to do. And there's the other misconception here, which is people, everyone is trying to work in the climate space. You have things like Forward, which are trying to get people into the space, but actually this talent gap is growing. It's not getting any smaller, and it's growing at almost a rate of 2 times. And really, I just want to take you on to the solution as we see it is, since we have this skills gap, a really agile way to deploy talent with experts that can spread their skill sets across multiple companies is something that we've seen have serious traction in previous skills gaps in history. So for example, in the technology boom and in the developer boom, the last 30 years. And introducing Leafr, and that's really what we do. The whole aim of Leafr as a climate freelancing platform is to get you access to climate sustainability skills in hours, not weeks. And we do that with a network of vetted climate professionals. So we have a proprietary vetting framework where we use to make sure that everyone on the platform not only is who they say they is, but they're also quality and they are vetted by a team of people, companies can review them, etc. And the mission of Leafr is to make in-demand climate skills readily available so that if you're a company with one of these projects, you're not held up by an inability to find talent and can find it rapidly. And we do this, and at the same time, we gather data. So we're gathering really useful data, not only on skills gaps and skill levels, but also on company demand. And we use that to help companies to share projects more easily. But we also use that to match candidates, to identify skill levels, and then we work to provide partnerships with education providers to actually provide targeted skills modules, like we're doing with the University of Oxford at the moment. We have a project with them where we're providing targeted skills modules at Leafr freelancers, which we can use to actually say, look, there's a huge skills gap, let's say in the area of carbon accounting. We can match you up with the most relevant modules that will reduce that gap. So Leafr was founded last year, late 2022. Since then, we've had over 40 projects shared by over 30 companies. So we're revenue generating already, and keep me honest on this one, but if you type into Google climate freelancing, we're the #1 unsponsored result. And we have a really good positioning with freelancers. So we have a 2-month waiting list.
1 minute warning.
Sure. And those are, so we have over 1,200 people signed up. And so we think we're in a good place. This is a massive market. Our team here, so myself, 2-time founder, including a match at marketplace. Our team includes people who founded climate marketplaces before, the chairperson of B Lab UK, and ex-McKinsey consultants. And it's a massive market, so a 30 billion TAM. And in the UK alone, we take 15 to 20% of each project. And that means with just a small set of projects, we're already generating or projected to generate in the next year over 200,000 in revenue. And that's just with an extremely small subset of this market. And finally, the vision for Leafr is we use our data that we're gathering, we use our expert network to democratize and scale access to climate skills. And that means training models, creating climate tools in partnership with our experts, and targeted skilled modules as well, which will drive more revenue for us.
And your time is up. What are you looking for?
300K. So that's my last slide. 300K is what we're raising with a round opening in the next few weeks.
Very cool. Let me pull the other panelists in. And while I do, why do you guys use Upwork as your analogy versus some skills platform? Are you going more for the platform approach to placing the jobs as well, or more on the skill side?
I think very much more on the platform. It's a heuristic that everyone understands. But I think the difference with Upwork is that we just want to use the data to really target and create partnerships with learning providers. Whereas Upwork are just purely focused on the talent side.
Understood. Take it away, guys. Just shoot your questions when you got questions. Otherwise, I'll pass the ball around if you guys need a teacher.
Maybe just, I mean, in light of the huge potential that there is for that space, I mean, what's stopping the larger kind of more established freelancer platform players to like go for that space and become more easily the reference point there?
Yeah, so I mean, firstly, we're single service, single brand proposition. So the point for us is really our brand is the go-to for climate skills. Whereas Upwork, their brand is really like, hey, I need a web designer for a few hours. So I think there's a fair amount of brand dissonance there. And secondly, it's what I just touched on about you go to them if you want to sell your skills and you know that it's a high liquidity marketplace. With us, you're coming to us because it's not only easier to transact, but also we're getting you access to things like modules into carbon accounting if you want to be carbon accounting. So there's an opportunity for us to really focus compared to them.
I equally have sort of like similar question in regards to, I think we briefly discussed this, Nick, with you clearly, you've established yourself as a player in the sector. You have, a little bit of, first mover advantage, but then what is it going to be in the next 5 to 10 years that actually going to make you, stronger and different from, the LinkedIn, the HR platforms and the rest of the world? That's your secret sauce, I guess.
Yeah. So for us, it's really, and I touched on it briefly on the second to last slide. So what we're gathering here, which I think is different to any other skills platform, is that two-sided data set. So let's say, for example, clients are coming to us and they're asking again and again for similar projects, and we can see trends in the data. So I'll use an example of life cycle assessments. And 5 different clients ask for it. You can see that current tools aren't serving this need. Then what we have on the other hand is a network of people who are the best in the world at delivering life cycle assessments for clients. We have that data. We know there's a demand and a gap in the market. We can then partner with those experts to build out these tools and build out really user-centric tools for people. And I think building tools on top of that foundation of data is really the play for us. Another one, so we want to scale access to climate expertise, is trying to train LLMs and trying to train AI modules on the combined expertise of the people on our platform. And companies like Quiver, which is an AI company, are starting to do this. I think there's a really good play for us there to be super specific about the climate space and try and make it really easy to access these kind of scarce skills. So that's the long-term vision. Right now, we're focusing on freelancing.
And first of all, thanks, Nick, and great presentation. And I completely agree with your last point. In terms of the gap in the market, there's a huge gap, both in terms of skills, but also in terms of knowledge. I mean, can you walk us through maybe in more detail the business model and how the numbers work?
Yeah, sure. So at the moment, rough size of a project on Leafr is about 9.5 grand, which is the amount that's paid to the freelancer. We take a varying fee from that. It's between 10 and 20%. It's usually about 15%. So each project for us is, upwards of £1 grand in revenue. They're quite lucrative. These aren't the tiny web design projects I mentioned. We're also starting to take matching fees. So we have a new product where you can just book a call with someone, which is going to be released next month. You book that instantly. It's an hour call. We take a matching fee. We also take 10% of people's first year salaries if they're hired permanently, which is great for us. And then the final one, which I touched on, is offering education modules. So if you're on the platform, you want to learn about carbon accounting, we've got a partnership with someone who does that, and we get a small referral fee.
Could you maybe say a bit more about how you vet candidates and how that is really scalable once you you will get to a much larger pool of experts?
Yeah, so right now it's a really, I really believe in the vetting framework we have. It was developed with some colleagues of mine out of Oxford, and that is a set of proof points across various areas of climate. So it might be, let's say, oceans, biodiversity, carbon accounting, mining, minerals. And we're looking at your application to see not only if you hit those proof points, but also if you don't, can you add value to the space anyway? So let's say you're an amazing designer, ex-Apple and Google. Do you have value to add to climate companies? Right now, that is done in a really static way. We're a young startup. We're doing it manually. We're trying to do things that don't scale. We would want to turn that into an algorithm at the end of the day, and testing it, training it. And the second way that we'd want to do is just reviews and referrals. So people on the platform saying, look, I know this guy, I can vouch for him, or hey, this person did a great job and we would work with her again, and she gets a 5-star rating, and then other clients can see that.
But I think the way you're saying it right now, and also I looked at the website and I didn't see it. So right now you don't have the rating system yet, right? But you're planning on adding it as you scale and have more traction and more projects, right?
Yeah, so right now the ratings, everyone does get a rating. We don't have a way to present it, but that is going to come in. And again, the new platform that we're releasing, we're hoping to have ratings on people as soon as you can see it, as soon as you've logged in. Right now, what we would do is if a client, again, it's done pretty manually. If someone's been rated, we'd say this person received this feedback from a client, and that would be in the kind of like email automations as they sign up.
And just out of curiosity, what's the skill or the job that is most needed based on the since inception?
The biggest skills gap is mining and minerals that we're seeing. People, which is crazy because it's also one of the hardest to abate, but the biggest emitters as an industry. But we're not seeing that. I don't know whether that's a function of like our personal brand, who it attracts, or as I suspect, also a function of the fact that there is a major skills gap in those space because people don't want to go and work for Rio Tinto if you're that concerned about the climate, even though it's important that you do.
Are you able to somehow encourage people into those different need to fill positions?
Yeah, good question. It's super important for us. So I think the way, and I would also appreciate ideas if anyone has seen similar ones, but the way that I would like to think about it now is we can say, look, we need these people, and we also need to know that we have demand, because I will also say we haven't had that much demand from mining companies. But if we know that we have the demand, we can say you would get, let's say, heavily discounted access to these courses. And then secondly is like within our kind of go-to-market for freelancers, like where are the communities that we're targeting, and just trying to drive marketing towards those. But the value prop, I think, being on the platform is like, how can we educate and upskill you and provide you with credentials in the space that we need you to be in?
Understood. There's probably a position for partnerships with governments as well to promote strategic initiatives and strategics. They might even pay for your data on what the.
Sure.
What's the biggest challenge you have? If you fail, why will it be?
So I think at the moment, the one that I always that kind of like keeps me up at night is as a marketplace is, you know, how balanced is it? So like we have got this really good traction with freelancers. We've got a really big waiting list. We're held back by our ability to get in front of these clients. And I think like we're our own bottleneck on the demand side, people showing projects. So the more that I can drive demand and drive sales, like we generally have really good sales outcomes as every person we speak to seems to see the value. There's a big need in this space, but the more that we can drive with them, I think is one. Second one would be potentially if we have, let's say, we're quite careful about liability on our projects. But if there is, so it's written into our contracts that these are freelance projects, we're not liable for anything that does happen. Just want to be super careful that everyone is heavily vetted, everyone is a really good quality person who can do really well, and that there's no essentially lawsuits coming out from the project. I see that one as a much lesser one than the first.
And where did it take you the round that you're fundraising right now? I think you mentioned 400K. So I mean, what's the revenue that you're projecting, let's say for 2024 for next year, but also in terms of team development, etc., and product?
Yeah, if I can be cheeky and share this slide again. Sorry, Matt. So yeah, 300K funding, projecting 220K revenue in 2024, 1.7 million the next year, and break even after 3 years. So with that is in the first year, 4 people, so 4 FTE. And then we have, I do want to really, really invest in start investing in our technology platform. So what are the cool things that we can do with making the user experience better? You know, capture the LLMs and AI opportunity, I think is massive as well. So yeah, that would be the main spend. And then the other one is, so I mentioned like getting us in front of clients. Just go hard on marketing and sales and our go-to-market and get people out there, knock on doors. And I think that's massive as well.
Nick, because I was quickly looking at Crunchbase, you know, like let's say we take Fiverr as, again, completely different sectors, but kind of like, would we consider that like a successful comparison? I mean, if you were to say, you know, kind of like Fiverr, but for sustainability, would that be a great goal?
Yeah.
Because
I usually use Upwork, but yeah.
Yeah, so because these guys have raised 111 million. So that's I think, great opportunity, absolutely yes. Timing is relevant, absolutely yes. Opportunity in the market, yes. So I think everyone recognized tick, all of that. It's just, how are you going to create, in other words, what is your, what if you had a magic wand? What would you want to happen? But what would you need for it to happen? Because it's kind of like surprising to see that, the 300,000 will get you to being profitable and then that's it. So that's the part that I'm a little bit missing, is a little bit more of a, call it a long-term vision, but really kind of like stepping up into what you're really trying to build here and what will you need to actually make it happen.
Yeah, so I guess kind of 2 questions in there. So 300,000, there we have priced in a second fundraise at some point in the next couple of years as well. And that is going to be market expansion for us. So there's 50,000 businesses in the EU, 170,000 in the US, which are needing to set sustainability goals. If you gave me that magic wand, I think the big thing for us, like the value of the talent pool we have, I know it's there and it's proven. and we're trying to make it super easy for people to transact on Leafr. I think what I would do is just get us in front of as many of those companies as possible and say, look, like, we're here, you can see our value proposition, we'll understand you as well as possible, and get them in the door. 25% of people who use Leafr post again. So I think they can see the value proposition. We want to raise that number. So for us, really, for me, it would just be driving demand, driving sales on our go-to-market as well. And like being a very young startup, we're constrained on that. That takes a lot of time, but I would invest quite heavily there.
One question, I'm curious about one risk maybe is, do your clients typically tend to work several times with the same freelancer? And how do you avoid them then once that connection has been built to not book outside of your platform, basically?
So this is really important as well. Firstly, so once you're on the project, yes, people do tend to work with the same one. It's a lot easier, and the people are good, so you want to keep them on. It's in the contract. I know this is easier said than done, and people can kind of break this rule, but we have it in the contract that both the client and the freelancer will be completely removed if we find that they've been working with the client without passing it through us. But actually, you want to have some behavioral kind of mechanisms to make that easier to do than not. And so for us, that means we'll handle invoicing and admin for you, contracting as well. So we have a contract template that gets shared, access to those discounted educational modules in Leafr. And then what we also want to start bringing in is things like referral fees for clients. So all with the aim of making it far easier to transact on Leafr than it is to transact off it. So that is just more value for you to work with us than it is to take this offline. So that's a big one for us. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm sure it will. I think these things are inherent in platforms. It's just how much can you reduce it?
Awesome. Any last questions, folks? Then Nick, thanks for presenting everything. Keep up the awesome work, and let's see what you can do.
Cool. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks for pitching. Georgi, you want to go next and share a little bit more about fish? I'm actually starting to get hungry, but
Sure.
I think it could be a fun one. Is your video on? You ready to roll? Georgi's been in our program, Forward VC, for a while now, and wanted to share their kind of debut of what exactly they're doing. If you I won't spoil it anymore. I've kind of butchered it as it is. Georgi, you wanna take it away and share what you guys are doing?
Sure, thank you. So you see my screen, right?
Yep, take it away.
Great. Yeah, so thank you, Matt, and so great to be here again and present AQUALITAS, a new era of data-driven precision aquaculture. As the global appetite for fish doubles, the seas cannot keep up, and by 2030, aquaculture and not the open seas will supply 60% of our fish. This shift is driven by overfishing, climate change, and a booming $420 billion market. The graph on the right shows a clear trend that as wild catch plateaus, aquaculture production surges. But despite its promises, aquaculture struggles with a staggering 20% mortality rate, leading to a potential $50 billion lost revenue annually. And as demand surges without innovative solutions, we are staring at a 50 billion kilogram shortfall by 2050. And the stakes, of course, are sustainability, profitability, and our global seafood supply. So imagine being an aquaculture operator. Your success basically hinges on knowing what's in your water at all time. And real-time water quality monitoring solutions promise these insights, but they are prohibitively expensive. And even if you can afford them, they often become unreliable shortly after installation. And it is a lose-lose situation, unaffordable on one side and unreliable on the other. The deceptive simplicity is that water quality sensors get dirty, compromising their data. And worse than that, they cannot self-identify and report the problem, turning these tools of insight into blind guides. And the industry needs a solution that can see clearly. So meet AQUALITAS, the game changer in aquaculture. We built the first AI-enabled self-aware water quality sensor. Our IoT sensor doesn't just provide data, but it delivers real-time reliable insights with minimal maintenance, and it was one of our goals. And the best part is that it is affordable and easy to integrate with existing infrastructure. And currently we are already running paid pilots in Israel. Our self-aware sensors are deployed at strategic points within the aquaculture system, and the data is uploaded in real time to our Aqua Insight agents that plays a dual role. On one side, it ensures sensor accuracy through autonomous self-calibration, and on the other side, it refines the collected data into actionable insights. This intelligence is then challenged to intuitive dashboard, putting invaluable insight at the operator's disposal. And the result is an optimized processes, informed decisions, and a blueprint for better productivity and profitability. What sets us apart is a very holistic approach to both technology and the business model. We'll build a flexible modular platforms that cuts the hardware costs, and our AI ensures long-lasting sensors that always delivers reliable data. And with consumable components, maintenance becomes simple. Altogether, we offer a new paradigm. We call it monitoring as a service. Backing our approach are a pending patent, 5 unique AI models, and 3 special technology blends. Our platform drastically cuts upfront costs, offering consistent operational savings of up to 80%. Harnessing the power of AI, we aim to halve the mortality rates, boosting yield quite substantially. And through optimized feed efficiency and minimized chemical treatment, we not only reduce costs, but also champion sustainable aquaculture practices. Over the last 8 months, we rolled out operational pilots across Israel, showcasing our technology versatility. In partnership with Paralgi, we have worked on water reuse processes. With Netafim, we have delved into monitoring water treatment for irrigation. And now, as we deepen our footprint in aquaculture sector, we have started collaborations and starting our first pilot programs with industry leaders. To achieve all that, we have built a great multidisciplinary team of both data scientists, water scientists, and experts in the water industry in developing sensory solutions. We are backed both by I4Valley, the Israel Innovation Authority, Forward VC, and now also by Inventec in Haifa. We are currently seeking a $500,000 safe investment for a transformative 12 months journey. Matching the Israel-India grant we have applied to, your support will help us to bring our AI sensors to the aquacultural market, showcasing the technology in pilot programs and initial traction. We are targeting over $500,000 in revenue from sales and subscriptions in this period, and preparing us to a substantial seed round and production scale-up. We have already secured part of the funds and are waiting for the Israel-India grant approval for more than $600,000.
1 minute warning.
Okay, so this is the last slide. So we'll self-aware sensors that can provide billions in savings, and a proven team. Our vision is to revolutionize water quality monitoring for a sustainable future. Thank you.
And thank you as well, Georgi, for coming on, for presenting. Let me bring in the other panelists and pass the ball over to Nadav first.
Hi, Georgi. First of all, while I live in London, I'm actually Israeli, and I've spent most of my life in Israel. And thank you for the pitch and the presentation. I'd love to hear more about you, maybe first, about your background and how you got into this field.
Sure. So in my background, I'm a scientist. I have a PhD in physics and nanotechnology from the Technion, and 25 peer-reviewed papers at the time. After that, I worked in Germany, in US, and in Israel in different companies developing innovative solutions. In 2016, I opened my first company. It was a innovative consulting company that worked with startups and other companies to develop innovative solutions. And in 2020, with coronavirus, I spinned it off into AQUALITAS.
Okay, great. And maybe going back to the business, can you explain to me again what exactly are those insights, and what's the, let's say, the raw data that you guys turn into insight that the profile of the typical customer is looking for?
Sure. So in aquaculture, when you talk to the growers and you ask if they grow fish, eventually they say, no, we don't grow fish, we grow water. So for them, it's very important what the water contains. And eventually what most affects the fish is the amount of oxygen in water. So on one side, and the simplest solutions that you can purchase today is basically oxygen meters or dissolved oxygen sensors that measures the dissolved oxygen. But it's, again, they suffer from the problems that I already described of not being reliable enough and also expensive, but also they just provide the data, they provide the dissolved oxygen. But what happens in water is, because again, you have the chemistry of water, everything affects the dissolved oxygen. So if you have algae bloom in the water, it affects the dissolved oxygen. The time that you feed your fish can affect the dissolved oxygen. So you have many parameters that are affecting each other, and only by monitoring multiple parameters, what we are doing, you can provide insights of what is going to happen inside the water and how you can protect basically your water and eventually protect your fish.
Okay, great. So maybe one last question from my side. And can you tell us a bit more in terms of the progress and the results that you guys achieved with the pilots that you guys have been doing? Is that paid pilots and how does it work exactly? And what have been the outcome of those activities?
Sure. So we are working on the developing of this technology for the past years. Again, it's quite complex technology because we have combined hardware and software and AI and everything together. And our initial market wasn't aquaculture. Actually, it's a new market that we are moving into. So in our initial pilot that we did, our goal was to understand and train the models to basically understand when the sensors start to drift. And this is why we did our initial pilots, not in aquaculture, but in different industries like algae growth or netafim with agricultural applications. Some of them were, but most of them were for the sake of data, basically receiving as much data as possible from the field, because again, you cannot receive this data from laboratory.
And then you basically pivoted into the aquaculture because the market was huge and needed a better solution, more or less kind of stumbled into a good solution.
And a more understandable ROI for the plants.
Many thanks and great presentation. Just to understand kind of how you're gonna start to penetrate the market. Aquaculture comes in different shapes and sizes. There's ponds, there's cages, there's wrasse, there's different species for which dissolved oxygen can be more or less important. Are you planning to focus on one specifically? I mean, what's really the market entry plan there?
Sure. So we are focused on inland aquaculture, so not sea aquacultures. So we are talking about ponds, or we are talking about recirculating systems, so wrasse systems that are more technological. We are in discussion with partners that do develop wrasse systems because they do more technical guys, and they do need the data to operate their systems and for their clients to operate them. But we are also working with pond aquaculture because eventually this is the big part of the market. So basically going there from on one side on direct cost to the clients, but also with collaboration with other companies that provide different solutions for the market, like feed, cleaning, and so on.
Thanks. And then one question about kind of, so the bigger vision here. So, I mean, are you collecting data? I mean, so you are collecting quite a bit of data from your sensors. Is there a plan to leverage that data moving forward to offer kind of more services to your clients? I mean, what's the next step post those insights? Is there a larger vision there?
Yeah, it's a great question. There are a larger vision and then the huge vision for the end. So again, for any data-driven applications, you need reliable data. And this is where we started from, is developing the sensors that can provide the reliable data. And then the simple insights using this reliable data. But all the business model is built upon the fact that we can provide a hardware solution that is more affordable than our competitors, and then adding with our business model of monitoring as a service, adding additional service upon the data that we collect as you described it. So starting from, let's say, measuring the oxygen, then predicting the oxygen or predicting the situation in the waters, and predicting the feeding schedule for the fish. So there are quite a lot of steps that we can go and quite a lot of services that we can add upon the data that we are collecting and will be collecting in the next coming months. So this is the big vision. Now, the huge vision is water in general, because again, water is everywhere and you need to know what water contains everywhere in any industry. We are talking about wastewater treatment, we are talking about agriculture, we are talking about drinking water. So this would be the huge vision for our systems to be installed in all water applications in the future, but the chemistry is different, so we will need to develop more solutions and more smart algorithms.
How big's the usage in the wastewater industry? I know you pivoted out of that just because they move slowly, but it was enormous, was my understanding.
Yeah, it's several $1 billion market, of course, all across the world, and it is growing, especially in the fact that there is a pivot toward smaller wastewater treatment facilities, not building huge facilities as we have today. So they need water quality monitoring, and a lot of push from the side of regulations that today is almost does not exist in this world. Maybe in Israel we have a lot of it, but across the world we don't see a lot of regulation on effluent from the wastewater treatment facilities, but it's coming in. And water reuse, of course, which is also a big application for it.
Any last questions, folks, on your side?
No, just one. It's I know very little of the sector, so I wasn't able to perhaps share some interesting question. But I guess before I arrived, so I'm sure you probably know that there's another company called AQUALITAS that does medical cannabis. So that again, yeah. So that is it's a tiny headache, but I guess you want to get rid of that headache sooner rather than later, because it just you don't want to have a name exactly as like a company who's in a completely different sectors and people get confused with.
So in the future, they can be our clients because they're growing cannabis in water, and we monitor.
You want to have high quality cannabis, you got to have high quality water, apparently. For all you West Coast
hydroponics
guys.
is one of our applications in the future, of course.
Here we go. We got a merge done. Okay.
Bingo. Why was the Indian company so interested? So what is exactly going on with that's actually an update I was interested in as well. I haven't talked about that lately.
Of course. So we have a collaboration with an Indian company that develops RAS systems. So RAS is recirculating aquaculture systems, basically closed ponds that you recirculate the water and you treat it and so on and so forth. And together we are moving into transportation of live fish, basically building and developing smart systems for transportation of live fish that monitor the water quality, control the water quality during the transportation, and basically reduce the mortality. Now, if I said that the mortality in aquaculture is about 20%, in transportation it's about 50%. So we are talking about huge amounts of loss there. So with them, we actually applied for an Israel-India fund, and we are hope that we will get it quite soon.
Very cool, very cool. And then
sorry.
you're good. Go for it, Nadav.
No, it's in something unrelated, but I wanted to ask you, have you been in touch with companies like Mairlot in Israel or others?
Yes, of course. When we started again in wastewater treatment plants, Mairlot was one of our go-to guys. Although Mairlot doesn't have a lot of wastewater treatments in Israel anymore, they were quite interested in the technology. But as Matt said, this market moves very slowly in adopting new technologies, and in the past year, the climate changed, and they're reducing the risk even more. So this was one of the reasons for pivoting our market to aquaculture.
Awesome. Then thanks for pitching, Georgi. And now is a good time to tell everyone if you guys want to download that's 1,000 now. Climate investors, VCs, corporates, accelerators focused on climate and clean tech. You can find that at forward.vc/VC database. We've also condensed everything. If you want to find all of our resources, our climate solutions database, get your information on there, find companies to invest in as an investor, or companies to partner with as a corporate, or companies to recommend to your to your clients as a sustainability consultant. We've got all kinds of programs for you. The best place for that and to find everything and more is forward.vc. And if you just want to find our resource hub and all of the things mentioned above, forward.vc/techies hub. The number 4 ward.vc/techies hub. We invest in companies that move the world forward. And here's one that may be doing just that. I would pass over now to Mansoor. Are you ready to rock, Mansoor?
Sure. Thank you.
Share a little bit more about what you guys are doing.
Yes, you want me to start verbally or go to the slides directly, depending on when it starts kicking in?
However you like. I'll add Jason as well in case he wants to talk.
Okay, well, appreciate it. Thank you. Yes, Jason is my coworker. Thanks, Jason, for being here. Thank you, everybody. Great to meet you all. And thanks, Matt, for all the communication and arranging this. My name is Mansoor Masoudi. I'm a CEO and founder of Emissol. We are in Mill Creek, Washington, just a little north of Seattle. We have been in the clean air space as a startup for some time. We have developed more than one technology. One of them, which is about CO2 capture, is what I'm going to be talking about in a moment. And we have developed other technologies. I won't talk about them, but if there is interest, obviously, we can have a conversation. So we are strictly funded so far by SBIR awards. And let me go to the presentation in the interest of time. But if there are any questions, I'm happy to elaborate. So let me share screen. You should be seeing my screen now. Is that correct?
Looks good. Take it away.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Yep. So what I'm going to talk about is about a proprietary technology we have developed, which is direct air capture of CO2, which captures CO2 at half the common cost out there, given our competitors' standing. What is direct air capture of CO2? In direct air capture of CO2, you pull air through contactors, which are monoliths. These not much different from the catalytic converter in your car. These monoliths or contactors are coated with an expensive adsorbent, a chemical coating. When air goes through these contactors act like sponge. They pull the CO2 selectively out of air and store it inside the adsorbent. When you have sufficient capture of CO2, you could either sequester it underground, or you could turn it into a variety of products. For example, carbon neutral synthetic fuel, industrial or household products, lots of applications in food industry, such as a soda that you drink, or carbonated water, etc. Those are all CO2 driven. And a lot of other applications in civilian and industrial applications. The CO2 level in the air is now exceeding 400 ppm, is more like 420 ppm and rising at 2% a year. That's not a low increase. In only 10 years, we'll be at 500 ppm. We need to bring these down, bring the CO2 concentration in the air down at least to the level of the 1990s, which is about 350 parts per million. And direct air capture of CO2 is one of the technologies that is being looked at. Why isn't everybody doing direct air capture of CO2? Because cost is its biggest challenge standing in the way. Now, there are startups out there working on similar technologies, not our approach, but cost is the greatest challenge in direct air capture of CO2. Here is a cost analysis done by National Academy of Sciences in the US. What they show in there is that out of the total cost of the direct air capture of CO2, about more than 80% of it is due to the adsorbent cost. This is a whooping lion's share of the total cost of direct air capture of CO2. So anyways we can bring that down, we help speeding up, accelerating, and commercializing direct air capture of CO2. We have developed a solution for this pain point. It is called a rapid capture, contactor, and optimized process. It reduces the highest capex, which is the adsorbent cost, by about 60%. It optimizes the CO2 capture process. It downsizes captured plant square footage. They altogether lower the overall CO2 capture cost by about 50%. It's backed by robust intellectual property in the US and overseas. CO2 capture market is a rapidly growing market. Before the end of the decade, it'll exceed $7 billion with a compounded average growth rate of 13.5%. Our business model is licensing. We ask for an upfront fee of $2 million and a royalty of 10%. By the way, our business model is flexible, pending what kind of conversation we'll be having with the interested investors coming on board. But
40-second warning.
Thank you. We think that's a good one. So far, we have received almost $2 million SBIR grant from Department of Energy exclusively for this technology. We have letters of support from several notable companies here for this particular technology. Here's a list of, I won't go through them one by one. Here's a list of potential interested parties for our technology. We have a robust team across myself, a PhD scientist. Apology, let me close this window. Experienced scientists, finance and business strategies, and so on. We work with US national labs and universities very closely.
And your time is up.
Thank you.
You said you're looking for 2 million?
That is correct.
First, just quick question while I bring in the other panelists. How exactly does the technology work? I might have missed that.
That's fine. No problem. So let me go here. Here is air. It may be near an industrial plant. It doesn't have to be near an industrial plant, but you pull air into what we call contactors. Contactors are coated with a certain chemical called adsorbent. Think of them like sponges. As air goes through these contactors, they don't touch nitrogen, they don't touch oxygen, they only look for CO2. That's the beauty of that adsorbent. It grabs the CO2 and stores it. Then there is a mechanism when the contactor or our so-called sponge is filled with CO2, there is a mechanism we can empty the contactors, and now we can do with CO2 what we want. Some companies like CarbFix are developing the technology to sequester it underground. Some other companies, which they call carbon utilization, turn CO2 into carbon neutral fuel like Fischer-Tropsch fuel or synthetic fuel, most people call it. You can make methanol out of it. You can make ethanol out of it, used widely in food industry, in soda pops, and other food ingredients, et cetera, But that's a capture process. The contactor plays a key role in that process. Does that answer your question?
Somewhat, yes. You guys want to take things away? John, you want to go first?
Sure. Maybe one side question first, because you mentioned you're developing some other technologies too. That means that you're fully focused on this company and it's within this company, or kind of how does this technology fit with your general occupation, so to speak, as CEO?
I am more than full-time working within Emissol. We have two technologies that we have actually developed three. Some of them have won R&D 100 award, German Innovation Awards, and so on. My time is, I would say, 2/3, 1/3 divided between this technology and the other technology, which is also in a cleaner space, is not CO2 capture. And our team is actually almost divided right in between, and half of the work, half of the team works in carbon capture, and the other half works on the other technology that we are pushing forward. And there is some fair amount of industry interest in the other one, but that honestly is not a carbon capture technology. It remotely has to do with carbon capture, has to do with fuel economy in cars, substantially reducing emissions and so on. but it's not strictly a carbon capture technology. And I'm only sharing that because you asked.
Yeah.
Which one's your favorite kid?
I think the future is carbon capture, no question about it.
And on the technology itself, how market ready is it? I mean, what's the technological readiness level at this stage?
There are a fair amount of activities going on. Actually, in the UK, a couple of you guys are in the UK. Baker Hughes is a big one, snatching startups left and right. We are in TRL3. All our lab work is pretty much done. We have a robust technology. This was, by the way, developed by almost a $2 million award from the US Department of Energy. SPIR, non-dilutive, etc. We are going to another phase of it in another year or two. And that one is actually matched dollar to dollar, which is a great offer for any investor coming on board. That to the side, back to your question, right now our lab work is done, proof of concept is done. DOE is happy with our results. We'll be actually presenting this next week in DOE Department of Energy meeting in Pittsburgh. We are at TRL3. We are ready to push to TRL5, come out of the lab, go to the field, do field demonstration, which pulls us to TRL5 till we have a working solution. And that should make us ready based on what we see in the market for acquisition by a major company active in this area. Or we can scale up ourselves, do CO2 capture and sell CO2, which is also being a common pathway followed by other startups in our space.
Hi, Mansoor. Thank you for the presentation. I wanted to, I mean, maybe before I ask the questions, we cannot talk about DAC without mentioning, the announcement, last week that Occidental, they bought Carbon Engineering. I think it was over a billion. I think it was 1.1 billion. So I think this would give a very big push to the industry and the market. Because this shows in the sector, that there's big exits potential, et cetera, et cetera. I want to ask you maybe a few questions. One, if we talk about DAC, trying to go below the $100 per ton benchmark, what do you think is the impact of your technology on the cost curve of DAC? And this is one. And maybe the second question is more in terms of the business model. I'm not sure I fully understood. So you mentioned at some point in the presentation a $2 million upfront fee. Can you explain to us how exactly this would work?
Yes, on your first question, given the expensive role of adsorbent in the overall cost of carbon capture, we have developed a technology that needs half the adsorbent, and that brings the cost down. Remember, adsorbent is more than 80% of the total cost of DAC based on the cost analysis of National Academy of Sciences. We have developed a contactor that, when using our optimized process, needs 60% less adsorbent. When we go through the math, that cuts the CO2 capture cost in half. So that's our cost analysis in a nutshell, but of course there is more detail, so we can definitely talk about it.
Sorry, can I jump in just quickly? So the cost of the absorbent is 80% of the cost of pulling a ton of CO2 from the air. I thought that it's also, with the cost of energy, renewables, etc.
Energy is a very, very big, depends what energy source you use. If you use renewable, I was at Carbfix facility, which is next to Climeworks in Iceland last year this time. If you use, why did Climeworks go to Iceland? Because it's all renewable, is very cheap, it's all geothermal. It really depends on your energy source. If it's wind or solar, it would be even a little cheaper. If it's coming from coal combustion plant, it is not cheap. So a lot of analysis you look from Heirloom and others, NOAA, their scientists and so on, it really, your energy cost depends on, I would say right after the adsorbent cost, the energy cost is right up there as well. So you are on the right track though. Yeah. And in terms of your second question, we are asking for, so we have developed different versions of this technology. We believe it is possible to license to keep the best version of it ourselves, using which we can go to field demonstration and scaling up, license other variations of it. And that's why for the time being, we are promoting the licensing model. This is ready to be licensed now, some variations of it, keeping the best for ourselves, moving forward, scaling up. So it will be a two-pronged technology to commercialization.
Why would people license a inferior product?
Why would they license an inferior product? Because they would still be able to make money. They wouldn't. It is extremely common by major. I used to work for some big companies out there. They license a variation of their technology and they move on with their crown jewel variation of their own technology. They move forward with it. So they have a two-pronged revenue on their technologies. It is not an uncommon model, though. They can still make money, though. The people who would license other variations of our technology from us. So you're correct. It would be inferior relative to us, but it would still be a money-making venture. Sorry, go ahead.
Nick, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, hi, Master. Thank you for the presentation. Just a few questions. One is future applications of the technologies beyond industrial. I mean, if you ever conceived to go into other sectors such as logistic. Second is, for those who don't know the market, if you could shed some light on how busy is the market these days, especially also following the latest sort of like regulatory changes, and how busy it is, how competitive it is, and where you guys are strongest beyond pricing. And then last question, but this is primarily driven by sort of like not a greater knowledge of the market. So if it doesn't make sense, just tell me. But you mentioned in your business model. So how does what's the correlation between your licensing business model and the value of the carbon you're effectively insetting from this operation? So what's the ratio between effectively the value that you are returning in terms of like climate value and the cost that you're charging, if that makes sense? So 4 questions: future applications, competition and strategic advantage, and business model and relationship to carbon credit.
I will do my best to answer them, Nick, but if we run out of time, we are happy to have a conversation with you on the side, though. On your first one, which is a future application, is interesting. You said that. We have a proposal in front of a major funding agency, I can say, it's Department of Energy, with a major energy entity whose name is listed here. It wouldn't be correct if I mentioned which one, but we have a proposal, a large proposal with them in front of Department of Energy, actually, just like you said, to apply our technology to an industrial decarbonization, not to confuse that with direct air capture of CO2. This very same technology goes inside a decarbonization chemical process and substantially brings the CO2 capture of that down in the industrial process. That's one of the other applications. Another application is, this is where we got the R&D 100 award. Also funded by Department of Energy, we developed a catalytic converter that takes about 30% less platinum. And that won, just last year this time, it won the R&D 100 award in the US, which is a top US innovation award, though. In terms of the market changes, we follow that very closely. We are aware of Occidental carbon engineering. We have spoken with Occidental. They told us they had invested, the answer they gave us was they had invested so much in adopting carbon engineering to do their first 1 million ton plant in Permian Basin in Texas. They were not going to re-engineer. Basically, they said that market positioning was done. There are a lot of regulatory changes in the good direction. There are a lot of carbon credits coming. There is carbon tax breaks that are coming. There are a lot of bills coming out there. Sequestration, I believe you can get $45 per ton sequestered $170, about $50 for utilizing CO2 into other things. There are a lot of good changes in the market. CO2 market is exploding. Amount of activities I see in the market now is not comparable to what I saw 2 years ago. So hopefully that's a little flavor into your question in the interest of time. In terms of our licensing model and the value that we bring to the table, bring me any direct air capture process. I am confident we can bring its cost down by a whopping ratio like the ones I have discussed here. That's our robustness of our technology. In terms of our licensing model, there are a lot of details. Obviously, we need to sit down with the interested party and go through the details and have a broader conversation on that. In terms of our business model, this is what we think would be viable, which would be exactly as I shared earlier. Keep the best variation of our technology, move forward with the scaling. We have a $1 match opportunity coming with the Department of Energy, while licensing other variations of it to companies that are just ready to get into direct air capture business. So hopefully I answered your question, but if I didn't, I'm happy to have conversations with you on the side. Here is our contact information that I'm happy to entertain any questions. So.
How low will the price of direct air capture be able to go with the technology and the absorbents that you guys are using?
We are certainly able, so generally speaking, mathematically speaking, bring me a direct air capture technology that uses adsorbents, I'll bring it down by just about half. But based on the analysis we have done using our contactor and our optimized process, we are able, and the cost analysis, National Academy of Science, we are able to bring it down just below $100 per ton, which everybody agrees is the breakthrough point for commercializing direct air capture of CO2.
Interesting. No, from my side, first of all, I think it's very interesting, and clearly, if you can bring the cost of DAC, by half, this would be transformational. But even by 20%, this will also will have a significant impact. My maybe two follow-up questions. One, I don't remember on top of my head what is the total capacity today of DAC. I think Orca is the biggest one, right, of Climeworks in Iceland, and I think this is about 4,000 tons. So I imagine the total capacity today in operation, it's not much higher than that. So the market is still in its infancy. You don't have to convince me that it's going to be a big market, etc., and we have to remove CO2, and we're meeting today 51 billion tons. This I'm all convinced. But in terms of commercializing your technology and your go-to-market, what's the strategy and how you're thinking of overcoming this?
Frankly, at this point in time, we are keeping all the options. You can't be a startup and telling investors and the market what to do. You have to see where the market is going and try to pivot according to the market needs. At this point in time, my honest answer is all options are on the table. If a company tomorrow comes on way and says, great, Emissol, you did your job. This is your minimum viable product. I'm ready to license this. Give this to me. I'll take it from here for X dollars. That's one model. Another one would be exactly as I shared, that we license variations of our technology, keeping the best for ourselves and moving on. That said, if one of these major companies I talked about come across and says, even I want your best, give it to me, you have done your job, I have more resources to push this forward at half the time, better than you, Emissol. I think we need to be open to that opportunity. Given everything equal, my own gut feeling is this technology does have the potential to be scaled up, but I'm not going to jump in front of investors and potential interested parties. It is their money, it is their decision. We are willing to listen and come to some agreements on. So generally speaking, our business strategy is flexible. We have an idea where we like to go. We think it's very viable. We look at this space very closely. Our competitors are doing pretty much the same model, but I'm not going to tell an investor what to do. We are always happy to listen to their case, see what they have in mind. And if we have to pivot, we will pivot.
So the investors driving your ship?
We will be open to listening to their interest and see where they like to go. And if we have to mend our strategy to have a joint strategy based on their pitch to us, we are willing to be open and have that conversation. I cannot say we will necessarily agree or disagree, because really the devil is in the details. What is it they like to do? They might come forward and say, I see this other company that has a great process aligned with your technology is going to make a great punchline in this market. Why would I not listen to that technology, to that argument?
Makes sense. Makes sense.
So,
how exactly did you guys develop all of this technology? So it seems like you've got a lot of good connections. You've gotten grants, you've gotten contracts, you've got this project, you've got the other project. Sounds like there may be a third project as well. There are a lot of kids and a lot of things happening. How did you get here exactly? What's the deal? What's the story?
it's a great question. About 6 years ago, the funding opportunity came out of Department of Energy. It was, can anybody out there develop a technology for catalytic converters that would take less platinum? The US industry alone spends $10 billion a year, that billion with a B, a year on platinum costs strictly for automotive applications. And that's where your catalytic converter, that's why they still catalytic converters, unfortunately. That's where it goes. We went forward the concept, which has a lot of strong flavors of this very same carbon capture concept at the time. This was about 6 years ago. We got the funding, we won, we got the funding with Develop, we work with the Oak Ridge National Lab. We are writing a paper to publish that right now. It blew through the expectation. The Department of Energy was very happy with it, and it won the R&D 100 award last year. Then this funding as we are kind of about to wrap that up, this funding opportunity came up for carbon capture. Can anybody develop a low-cost carbon capture? And we looked into it and said, oh, it's got a contactor. A contactor is a monolith. I used to work for that industry. A monolith is what is in your catalytic converter. It is made exactly by the same companies that are making catalytic converters for cars. It's precisely the same application, same technology. I used to work for them. So it's a, wait a minute. The process is very similar for those of you in chemical engineering. It's a heterogeneous reaction process. Very reduced platinum, here reduced adsorbent. The rest of it is exactly identical. The temperature, there are some variations, boundary conditions are different, it's toxins and so on. But actually the bar here was a lot lower. It suggests, we say, you know what, guys? We have a proof here this technology works. It worked for catalytic converter. The heterogeneous reactions are very much similar. Let's try it here. The funding opportunity came about. We took it to do it. We won again. We went to phase 2 of it, total of almost $2 million for this technology. And our technology is robust. We have a lot of, our paper in chemical engineering science just got accepted last year. If any of you are interested, I'll send you a link to the first publication that just got published after peer review at Chemical Engineering Sciences, which is a very credible journal, by the way. And we have 3 more papers coming, by the way, not published yet, is in the review. So that history of developing catalytic converter with low platinum really told us, you know what, guys, this is a good bet. We can be successful. We applied it and it worked. By the way, I'm editor-in-chief of an international journal in emission control science and technology by Springer. We just reached agreement with a major international publishing company to establish as editor-in-chief a second journal strictly in carbon capture, utilization, and sequestration, CCUS. We got an amazing editorial board in there. Honestly, in terms of intellectual bandwidth engineering, we have no shortage. We are probably an overkill. It is the funding that we are more like, it will give us a lot more breadth to go forward. Anyways, some of the information that might be helpful to you, but hopefully I answered your question. So that's how this technology came about. We had a kind of parallel of it, developed for automotive application. We knew it would work here. We went for it, and the result was great.
Very cool. Any last questions, folks? Awesome. Then thanks for pitching, Mansoor, and thanks for coming as well, Jason. And thanks for everything that you guys are doing. So this is the part of the show where I tell you I had a goof up, and we had somebody a no-show, and B, a timing mistake on my part. So we had 3 incredible companies tonight. This is going to be one of our shorter, earlier, easier ones for the panelists and folks tuning in. While I'm talking and sharing a little bit more about Forward VC and the Startup Tank, think about who your kind of startup of the night is going to be. And for anyone who's listening in now, if you haven't subscribed, normally we have a lot more companies and a bit more excitement, but occasionally I've been very busy, and occasionally sometimes things just fall through. So that's kind of the show so far today. We've got 3 incredible companies. We'll jump into voting in a sec. If you're trying to raise money, then check out our Climate VC database. You can find that at forward.vc/Techies Hub is probably the best place, along with our Climate Solutions database. We've got a deal share list for climate VCs that you can find as well on our website, a sustainable and impact investing program for family offices and high net worth that want to break into the space, programs for corporates out there trying to decarbonize, discover new energy, carbon capture, renewables, plastics, recycling, etc., innovations, programs to help corporate consultants. So think McKinsey, KPMG, EY, etc., do a better job consulting for their clients and sending sustainable solutions their way. And everything that we do is brought to you free and from the love of our heart. So if you want to support us, we've got a bunch of special offers out there for startups, investors, corporates, etc., just on different resources that we use and like. You can check those out as well on our site at forward.vc/offers. And now we would jump into the last section of the show, and that's our climate startup of the night. Let's see if we can pick a favorite. Nadav, since you're the veteran, do you want to go first?
I'm happy to. So again, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. I think all startups, it was very interesting and informative. I think the presentations were good. I'll say a few things. One, in terms of Nick's startup, the marketplace for freelancers in climate, it's not the typical investment that we will do in Nomea. We focus quite a lot. The majority of our investments are in hardware and deep tech, but I do think that there is a great need for that. There's a big question of marketing and branding. A big issue here will be, how you drive sales with marketing and what's your customer acquisition cost. We didn't really get into all of those details, but I thought the pitch was good and the strategy was interesting, and relatively to when, the inception of the company, they already have some initial traction. Marketplaces are never easy, but once you scale and you're able of building a strong brand, then there's a lot of opportunities. With Georgi's startup, AQUALITAS, I'll admit that I don't know the space well enough in order to comment, especially not on the technical thing. So I'll have to skip. But in terms of Mansour's company, I thought it's clear that you know a lot about the space. I think there's still obviously you guys are still early days. You said I think TRL 3 or 4, so there's a long way to go. If you can cut the cost of DAC by half, then there's a very big opportunity here ahead of you. My advice would be to try and be in some sort of a close collaboration or close discussion with one of those, carbon engineering or Climeworks, because if the solvent is 80% of their cost, believe me, they're spending, they're spending day and night trying to get that cost down. So, so the competition will only become stiffer as time goes back, as time goes by, and as DAC starts to scale. But I thought it was interesting, and I know the space a little bit. We've spent a big amount of time looking into different types of carbon removal. So this is my recap. I know you wanted the vote, and I gave you the answer of a politician. Do I need to vote now, or should I wait until the other panelists?
I'll let you vote now. I'll put you on the hot spot.
Okay, you're putting me on the hot spot. So I'll say that I thought everyone were great. I'll go with Mansour's company just because it's more right up our alley and we like the DAC space. Obviously, from this short conversation, I cannot tell, I cannot give a more profound feedback on the technology and the technical side and the commercialization path, but it sounds very interesting to me.
Thank you very much, Nadav. I appreciate it.
And I would certainly second that. John, you're up next.
Yeah, sure. So well done to everyone. I thought it was all 3 fascinating companies with definitely great potential. I know a bit less about carbon capture, but yeah, if the figures are confirmed, that is definitely huge potential. Aqualitas, I know a bit better. That sector, dissolved oxygen could be a massive issue. There are already, though, quite a few players in the space. So I think it's really key to specialize on some core species and some core farming methods intensive ponds of shrimp, for example. I think would be a really first good step. So I would maybe try to first kind of to understand that clientele a bit better for who really needs that real-time monitoring. But I think tonight I'll go actually with Leafr because I definitely see kind of the massive gap in the market. I like the strategy and the ambition, and yeah, the start of traction that they're showcasing. Yeah, so that would be my vote tonight. But really excited about all the companies that have presented this evening.
Awesome. And then Nick, you're up.
Well, first of all, thank you, Matt, and thank you, everyone. Absolutely agree. 3 great entrepreneurs, 3 great startups, and I think all tapping onto the big climate opportunities and challenges that we're seeing these days from different corner. But I guess going into detail, for Leafr, yes, absolutely agree. Huge opportunity. There's a great gap out there. You guys move in very quickly and establish yourself as a player. It's a great first step done. Concern, again, for me, are more about, okay, what's going to happen in the next 7 to 10 years? And I know there's no such a thing that a plan. So no plan is ever going to be followed. But I think there has to be a forms of clarity, and just going, we're going to raise £300,000 and that's going to go it. I think it may raise a little bit of a concern because similar marketplaces have raised 110, 120, 160, 200 millions. And so maybe on smaller markets, but I think there has to be some forms of at least clarity on where your ambition lay in the future and how you're going to get there, because otherwise it's just going to raise some red flags. So that's sort of like some thoughts on Leafr. But again, keep pushing because the opportunity is there and you're there first. For Aqualitas, again, I think it would have been fair. It wouldn't be fair to share any comment because the knowledge of the market is equal to 0. So I wouldn't share any specific feedback apart from that little headache I mentioned. But again, I'm sure that's the least of your challenges. Emissol, I think amongst the companies, it seems this is the company that's bringing like one of the sort of like strongest technology to market, the one with the biggest opportunity. And again, if the technology can be proven and scaled, then again, the question would be how do you design your business model and your business aggressively for growth? Because clearly, I was in an exciting conversation this morning, and they mentioned someone who's working in direct air capture mentioned that if Chevron was to basically purchase all the carbon credits available, they would probably be able to offset their scope 1, scope 2, but that would be it. There wouldn't be any other, like the rest of the world, would be empty. So I think just to understand, how quickly and aggressively could you actually expand growth and capture the market? I think that is a big question. Happy to continue on the side. And and again, also in terms of growth, what do you envision to be the required step for growth, given sort of like capex intense business, and again, just a little understanding on the future. But again, if I had to sort of like vote, yes, I would probably go for Emissol.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
I think I'd probably go for Emissol as well, just because it's the picks and shovels of the entire direct air capture business. I don't think building it and scaling it yourself makes any sense. I think selling the solution to everybody else makes sense, because then the market goes up. So I think getting that in line is certainly will certainly be kind of a necessity going forward. Otherwise, you'll build two different businesses. One will distract you from the real business, is my opinion. But I think just from a technology and kind of an impact perspective, it's hard to argue against that. And then from a kind of easy venture perspective, Leafr has the potential. I think everybody that presented, great companies, really solid what you guys are doing. But from just an overall mass impact scale, I mean, half the cost on direct air capture is pretty good. Consensus then? Sounds like it. Mansoor, thanks so much for coming, presenting. Everybody, thanks for tuning into this shortened section of the Startup Tank. Normally it won't be like those. It's just you've seen some of the resource hubs and databases we've been putting out lately. There's been a lot going on. If you haven't checked those out, I highly recommend it. We've got our climate solutions database on there where you can find all different carbon capture, energy storage, plastics, advanced manufacturing, etc. companies. Or maybe you're one of those companies and want to find your ideal investors and filter by stage, sector, geography, and check size. Or maybe you're looking to connect with other players in the space and set up strategic partnerships, JVs, and get some distribution. Whatever it happens to be, our Climate Techies Hub is for you. Just forward.vc/Techies Hub. It's a nice little Notion page. You can find all of the stuff that we do that we've made for you guys, and hopefully it helps you with moving the world forward. If you want to find out more about us and our Partner in Climb program, our accelerator where we go super hands-on to help companies get traction, customers, clients, pilots, and scale, it's just forward.vc, the number 4ward.vc/accelerator. And John, where's the best place for people to find out about the next step in the journey for you?
On my LinkedIn, I guess I'll make some announcements soon.
Yeah. Be on the lookout. You heard it here first. Nadav, you're up.
Thanks. Always happy to connect on LinkedIn. If you're a startup, then you can also go to our website at Nomea, and there is a form to be filled out, and then someone from our team will reach out.
And last but certainly not least, Nick.
Well, thank you, Matt, and congratulations on everything you guys are building every day. And yeah, likewise, everyone feel free to connect on, I guess, either LinkedIn or just hello@SpinVC.
Awesome. And if you guys want to find us, we've got our Slack and WhatsApp communities. Highly recommend joining those. It's 3,000, maybe 4,000 folks in there now. And there's actually some pretty decent conversations going on. Nobody's posting porn. We're keeping the spam out. Things are working, and we're at 3,000 to 4,000. So that's very good news. So forward.vc, you can find the Slack, the WhatsApp, everything in there, and hopefully find customers, clients, partners, investors, JVs, etc., just by looking around. That's what we're here to do, is move the world forward, hence the name. And if you want to pitch on one of these upcoming sessions, it's just thestartuptank.com. You can apply there. It's the same application as our accelerator, and you can choose your own adventure, so to speak. I will talk to you guys all later. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe, share this with a friend, yada, yada, etc., etc. You know what to do. Now just go do it, because we're doing this for you. Thanks. Cheers.
Thank you.